Year's Eve is a time hailed for new beginnings and heartfelt farewells to the old. In Japan, this day transforms into omisoka, a cornerstone in the calendar. It's steeped in age-old customs and traditions that paint the day with utmost significance. Unlike the American revelry of parties and midnight kisses, Japan decks itself for a celebration that stands as the pinnacle of holidays. Yet there's a haunting tale that shadows this jubilant time. At the onset of the 21st century, an unsettling event shook the festive season forever. It unfolded in Tokyo's Setagaya district, and for almost 20 years it has left investigators scratching their heads in bewilderment. Welcome back to True Crime Investigation. This is the case of the Setagaya family murders, and we offer condolences to the community that had to deal with this tragic loss. While the Y2K frenzy gripped America, Japan decided to welcome the new millennium a whole year later, stepping into 2001 for their big celebration. The Miyazawa family was your quintessential Japanese household. 44 years old Mikio Miyazawa was the head of the family, working at Interbrand, a global marketing giant in London. This company was a pretty big deal. They were the brains behind big league branding for companies like Microsoft and Nissan, and even gave birth to the term Wi-Fi in 1999. At Interbrand, Mikio was the congenial man everyone adored. He was the kind of guy who effortlessly clicked with everyone, and there was no way he could have gained any enemies. Now his wife Yasuko, also in her 40s, was cut from the same cloth. Warm-hearted, caring, and also a teacher, she poured her heart into their kids, 8-year-old Nina and 6-year-old Ray. Nina was your typical second grader, playful and full of life, with soccer and ballet as her passion zones. Ray, the youngest, had been grappling with a speech hiccup, causing a tad of stress for the family. They were seeking proper help, but it was still a worry. Back in 1990, the Miyazawas settled in Setagaya, a bustling district in Tokyo, home to over 200 families. Nestled southwest of the city, Setagaya's charm came from its residential environment, a refreshing change from the city's bustling landscape, and not far from the scenic Tokyo Bay. The Miyazawa family's home was a quirky setup all on its own. Their place was this building that looked like a single unit from the outside but was more like a duplex inside. It was a smart arrangement that allowed them to live right beside Yasuko's family. Her mom was the main neighbor, but her sister and brother-in-law were also part of this household mix. This setup made it a space for 7 family members. Yet, there was no internal doorway connecting the two halves. To move from one side to the other, you had to step out and enter through a different door. The house's whole charm was deeply tied to the park, sitting directly behind it. This wasn't just any park. It was slated for a big expansion by the city. That meant most neighbors had already packed up and left, leaving only 4 families, including the Miyazawas and their relatives next door, plus 2 other families down the street. It was a ghost town, with barely any people in their vicinity. This meant that the action was all at the skate park just behind the Miyazawa residence. It was the heart of the expanding park, and it was separated from their house by a mere fence. A while back, Mikio had squared off with a bunch of rowdy teens there, trying to tone down their noise levels. And if that wasn't enough drama, there were rumors about him crossing paths with the Bosozoku, a rebellious motorcycle gang. Tensions were brewing. With the park expansion looming and everyone clearing out, the Miyazawas were planning their move too. It was December 2000, and they figured they'd tough it out against the skate park uproar for a few months before heading off to a new place nearby. But fate had other plans in store for them. The days leading up to New Year's Eve were more than just encounters with rowdy teenagers for the Miyazawa family. There seemed to be a series of unusual occurrences weaving through their neighborhood, leaving them confused. An unsettling trend ensued, with local animals falling victim to torment. The tales spun around the community hinted at more than mere rumors. They hinted at a disturbing pattern. Rodents were found lifeless, and even the strays, feline nomads of the streets, suffered unspoken cruelties. One account told of a friendly stray's sudden appearance without its signature tail. Language barriers hindered a deeper investigation, but these narratives begged for attention. On Christmas Day, Yasuko shared an oddity with her father-in-law. A foreign car was frequently occupying their front. and it was a strange choice of parking when ample spots existed nearby, rendering fence jumping unnecessary. Fast forward to the 27th of December, when a seemingly ordinary day was shadowed by a man in his 40s wandering around the Miyazawa residence. Initially unassuming, given the locality's communal environment, but in hindsight, his presence seems to have served a purpose. Then came the 29th, where a mysterious figure materialized miles away at Seijo Gakunmai Station. Dressed as a skateboarder, an eyewitness noted his strange attire in contrast to the weather. His unprepared appearance, coupled with a backpack, added to the intrigue. Curiously, on the same day, this skateboarder look-alike made a weird purchase, a sashimi knife from a local store. It was the only purchase of its kind that day, making it an easier trail to follow. By December 30th, the same figure made an appearance near Sengawa Station, a mere mile from the Miyazawas. His age bracket, 35 to 40, and his gradual proximity to the Miyazawa home in Setagaya made things feel uncertain and scary for everyone involved. On a seemingly regular Saturday, December 30th unfolded, completely oblivious to the tragedy that would soon befall the Miyazawa family. They busied themselves with the usual pre-holiday work, embracing the festive atmosphere that New Year's brought. A sense of excitement lingered, marking the beginning of a brand new century. As twilight approached, roughly around 6 p.m., the family went out, maybe to shop for the upcoming celebrations. Details are foggy about whether all 4 members were present, but a passerby noted their absence of a family car around 6:30 p.m., lending credibility to the tale. Around 7 p.m., Yasuko made a casual phone call to her mother next door, a commonplace occurrence in their neighborly relationship. It was a mundane chat, perhaps inviting her mother over to spend time with her granddaughter. Corroborating this, Niina, their daughter, headed next door to catch a TV show recording, a familiar routine until around 9:30 p.m. Everything seemed normal up to this point for the Miyazawa household. The last trace of activity was an email accessed around 10:38 p.m., Mikio perusing a password-protected work email, presumably his responsibility to unlock. That moment encapsulated the final known instance of life within the Miyazawa abode. Little did they know, their serene home was on the verge of transforming into a chilling scene, shattering the tranquility they had known until then. As the clock edged closer to 10 in the evening, a casual observer walking along the park path, bordering the Miyazawa family's residence, caught wind of what seemed like a heated discussion emanating from within. The sounds weren't particularly jarring, as there were no thunderous bangs or piercing screams. It was just the ambient murmur that accompanies intense conversations, perhaps an exchange between a couple delving into a passionate debate. About 90 minutes later, a sudden burst of commotion disrupted the tranquility on the Miyazawa side of the duplex, catching the attention of a family member living next door. Pinning down the exact moment remained difficult, yet calculations, anchored in the sequencing of television programs, provided a tentative timeline for the disruption. Concurrently, a passing eyewitness, or maybe a neighboring resident, recalled glimpsing a fast-moving figure going down the walkway adjacent to the Miyazawa family's home. This fleeting sighting added another layer of intrigue to the unfolding events around the residence. These 3 enigmatic occurrences stood as the only telltale signs hinting at an undercurrent of disturbance on that significant night in Setagaya. Little did anyone know, the harrowing events taking place within the Miyazawa household would remain shrouded in mystery for several hours to come. In the vicinity of the Miyazawa household, a cab driver went on a ride with 3 passengers shrouded in mystery. These nameless middle-aged men maintained an unsettling silence throughout the journey, an eerie atmosphere for a late-night drive. The clock had already ticked past midnight when these passengers got off at a nearby station. Curiously, one of the men bore a conspicuous wound, leaving behind a bloodstain on the taxi's back seat. The driver, disturbed by this unusual occurrence, couldn't shake off the vivid memory. The driver couldn't possibly anticipate the gravity of the situation until the unfolding events reverberated throughout Tokyo. The following morning, on the eve of New Year's Day, Yasuko's mother tried to reach out to her daughter's family. To her surprise, the phone line appeared dead, preventing any connection with her loved ones. Unaware of the orchestrated disconnection, she ventured to their house hoping for a friendly visit, only to meet an eerie silence behind closed doors. Resorting to her own set of keys, she tried to gain entry, realizing that something bad had happened within the walls of the Miyazawa household. The quietness inside the house hung heavy, a prelude to a dreadful revelation. Upon entering, Yasuko's mother sensed an unsettling atmosphere that hinted at something being amiss. As she ventured further, a heart-wrenching reality swiftly unfurled before her eyes. The motionless figure of Mikio Miyazawa lay sprawled at the staircase's base. The 44-year-old father bore the aftermath of multiple stab wounds, a stark contrast to the welcoming threshold of their home. But her ascent to the second floor revealed a tableau more chilling. Yasuko and Niina, her daughter and granddaughter, lay motionless, their bodies marred by countless stab wounds. Driven by an anguish-stricken hope, she reached out in an attempt to restore a semblance of life. Yasuko, her lifelong companion in this journey, and Niina, the vivacious spirit of the household mere hours ago, now lay inert, their vivacity extinguished by an unknown tragedy. But the deepest heartache resided within another chamber. Ray, the 6-year-old fighting speech challenges, rested lifelessly in his bed. The signs of strangulation hinted at him being the first victim in this sequence. With a heart heavy with sorrow, the grandmother summoned the authorities. Once they got there, the authorities in Tokyo were left stunned, grappling with a profound shock that mirrored the horror witnessed by Yasuko's mother. It was a crime scene that rippled through the community, sending reverberations of dread. An entire family had been killed in the stillness of the night. This was a truth hard to accept. As they arrived at the scene, the officers pieced together the fragments of the ghastly event. Yasuko's mother, sister, and brother-in-law, being in the neighboring home when the tragedy unfolded, were questioned about any strangeness or suspicious incidents from that fateful night. Their recollections honed in on a distinctive sound, a heavy thud reverberating around 11:30 p.m., a timing aligned with a television program. Investigators assumed that this thud possibly marked a confrontation between Mikio, the father, and the intruder. Given his injuries, it was deduced that he fought with the assailant, likely resulting in the loud thud heard by Yasuko's family as Mikio was hurled downstairs. The wounds inflicted on Mikio were primarily concentrated around his neck, and they were consistent with multiple stabbings. The investigators deduced that a sashimi knife, discovered at the crime scene, had been the weapon wielded by the intruder. Astonishingly, this very knife had been purchased from a local supermarket a day before the tragic night. However, amid the attack, the knife had seemingly fractured or broken. Regrettably, the specifics of how the knife broke remain elusive. Yet, scrutinizing the evidence at the scene led the police to believe that the shattered knife was only one of the potential murder weapons. Another blade, sourced from Mikio and Yasuko's kitchen, was used to fatally attack the two women upstairs. What's particularly curious about Mikio's discovery was his attire. He was still dressed in his usual business clothes, the sort he'd wear during the day. There's mention in one online report that he had one shoe on. In understanding where the bodies of Yasuko and Niina were found, it's crucial to grasp the layout of the family's house. It's an intricate design, and at the top of the staircase leading to the second floor, there's a ladder ascending to a third-story loft. This loft space hosted a bed and a TV, leading many to speculate that both Yasuko and Niina were likely there at the time of the tragic events, perhaps catching a show or reclining on the bed. Yasuko and Niina's bodies were discovered at the base of the ladder that led up to the loft on the third floor, each bearing multiple stab wounds. Investigators were struck by the excessive nature of these injuries, assuming that the victims had suffered a large number of stabs, extending far beyond the point of death. This led to various theories hinting that the perpetrator might have held strong animosity towards women or girls, a grim possibility that unfortunately isn't uncommon in such cases, and would later become a significant aspect of the investigation. As for Ray, the family's young son, he was found in his bed having been strangled. Initially, law enforcement struggled with the perplexing question of why Ray was spared from the brutal stabbings inflicted upon the rest of his family. Yet, as they pieced together the evidence, they conjectured that he was likely the first target of the assailant. Although spared from the immediate horror of witnessing his family under attack, his final moments were likely clouded by confusion that his young 6-year-old mind might not have fully understood. Later that day, approximately 6 hours after the grim discovery of the bodies, a young individual was taken to a medical facility located at Tobuniko Station. This station lies a few hours north of Setagaya, the Tokyo neighborhood where the Miyazawa family resided. The stations share multiple train connections. The man, estimated to be in his 30s, arrived at the center without disclosing his identity or offering any explanation for his severe hand injury, which reportedly exposed bone. The medical staff found his casual attitude towards the injury quite surprising and regarded him with suspicion, noting these details vividly due to their unusual nature. Describing this man further, he appeared to be comfortably in his 30s, dressed in a black down jacket paired with jeans. Despite keeping tight-lipped about himself, he received treatment for his injury and was subsequently discharged by the medical team, oblivious to the events that had transpired just a few hours earlier. Surprisingly for the investigators, the crime scene was a tell-all book, revealing the events that occurred during the early hours of December 31st in an array of evidence. Right off the bat, the police hit the jackpot of investigations by stumbling upon the murder weapons. Both knives, one bought on the 29th and the other snatched from the Miyazawa's kitchen, sat in the kitchen sink, blood-stained and easily traced. Unlike many investigations that hit a wall without a weapon, this one jumped ahead with 2 weapons uncovered almost immediately. Beyond the knives, the Miyazawa home became a gold mine of clues painting a vivid picture of the night. The family's first aid kit was found open, its bandages stained with 8-year-old Nina's blood, indicating her attempt to patch up amidst the assault. In the upstairs bathroom, a revolting find emerged: unflushed excrement. This oversight or deliberate action by the killer left behind traces of a meal, remnants of a sesame spinach dish mixed with string beans, pointing to the killer's meal choice. Internet users tagged this dish as mundane, potentially a meal a mother might serve her son, brewing theories of a man living under his mother's roof. Throughout the house, shoe prints, recklessly splattered in blood and dirt, hinted at the assailant's movement. The prints were distinct to a particular Slazenger shoe size, not commonly found in Japan but possibly available in South Korea. This detail sparked discussions about the killer's potential ethnicity. Among the evidence were bandages used by Nina, along with towels and women's hygiene products stained with unknown blood. Detectives considered these finds crucial, suggesting a scuffle on the stairs between Mikio and the attacker, likely resulting in the assailant's injury, needing urgent medical care. The blood samples were dispatched for analysis, a process that doesn't yield quick answers. Meanwhile, the police went on a relentless hunt for more evidence intentionally left behind by the killer. In a discovery during the investigation, a bunch of clothing and belongings brought by the culprit or culprits were found abandoned, almost as if they were deliberately left behind or the killer had zero qualms about leaving a trail. Seemingly, the assailant wore a skater-style outfit at the crime scene, a mix of casual gear. The items included a gray Crusher hat, a black AirTech jacket, a white and purple long-sleeved shirt, black Edwin gloves, an untagged multicolored scarf, and a black handkerchief. The standout was the blood-stained long-sleeved shirt, different from anything that the family owned in style and size, available only at Marufuru shops, where gloves and the Crusher hat were also sold. Highlighting the oddity, detectives found the handkerchief had been ironed before use, a detail that raised eyebrows. Adding to the oddity, traces of Drakkar Noir cologne were discovered on it, a curious but not decisive finding. Surprisingly, all the clothes had been washed in hard water, rich in minerals uncommon in Japan's soft water system, hinting at a potential link to someone of Korean background due to Korea's hard water system. But even with this truckload of evidence, the police were far from piecing together the case, with more revelations looming and no solid suspect in sight. Time trickled by, days merging into weeks and weeks stretching into months. The police, armed with evidence, sought public help to trace the clothing left at the crime scene. Unfortunately, most items found were common, making it futile to track down every owner in a sea of similar outfits that flooded Japan's markets in the preceding year. In early April 2002, a startling discovery surfaced about 100 days after the tragedy. Investigators stumbled upon a small Buddhist statue, a Jizo image, within a mile of the Miyazawa residence. Jizo, known for safeguarding departed children in the afterlife, shielded them from evil entities on their journey to the spirit realm. Initially considered a possible remorseful gesture by the perpetrator, this find remained a haunting symbol of the Miyazawa's tragedy. As the police sifted through evidence and scrutinized forensic data within their still nascent crime database, a sinister sequence of events leading to the family's demise emerged. They traced the probable entry point of the assailant, the second-story bathroom window accessible from the back of the house, overlooking a fence bordering the park. Scaling that window would demand significant physical prowess and upper body strength. The heartbreaking scenario painted by the investigation proposed that the killer first targeted the young 6-year-old Ray in his sleep, strangling him. Subsequent events became less definitive. Detectives speculated that Mikio, engrossed in work downstairs, likely heard a commotion upstairs and, while ascending, confronted the assailant. A struggle ensued, culminating in Mikio's tumble down the stairs, where he was discovered later. The theory continues, proposing the killer returned with another weapon to eliminate the family, leading to the death of Yasuko and Nina at the latter's base. Alternatively, it's possible that after Ray's demise, the killer targeted 8-year-old Nina while her mother was present, prompting Mikio's intervention. Their struggle moved toward the stairs, where Mikio's fatal injuries were inflicted, the assailant injuring himself in the process. Subsequently, the assailant ventured to the kitchen for a new weapon, then resumed the attack on Yasuko and Nina, who might have sought refuge in the loft, attempting to secure the ladder behind them. However, police reconstruction suggested the killer lingered within the home for hours after the family's murder. Instead of a hasty retreat, the killer opted to remain an uninvited guest in the Miyazawa household after the gruesome murders. Rather than concealing the family's bodies, the killer settled in for an unexpected overnight stay. The assailant, astonishingly, took a nap on the living room sofa, an unconventional twist in this grim saga. Typically, culprits rush from the scene to evade detection, but this perpetrator seemed to relish the eerie calm of inhabiting the victim's home for a night. More perplexing was the killer's casual raid of the family fridge, favoring ice cream. Detectives unearthed 4 ice cream wrappers bearing the killer's fingerprints, distinct from those of the household members scattered around the house. Furthermore, the killer utilized the family's computer located in the downstairs study. Investigations revealed an accessed timestamp at 1:18 a.m. on December 31st, shortly after the presumed time of the murders. The assailant visited a bookmarked webpage belonging to the Shiki Theater Company, a passion shared by Mikio. At 1:18 a.m., the perpetrator tried to purchase tickets for a show, potentially indicating the killer's actions post the tragic event. Later, around 10:05 a.m., the killer accessed Mikio's company, Interbrand, and Yasuko's school websites, restricting browsing to the family's bookmarked sites, possibly to prolong the intimacy of being in their home. Subsequently, the killer, after a brief 10-minute stay on the computer, unplugged it. Throughout the night, the assailant amassed the family's IDs and credit cards, neatly arranged in the living room, presumably to guess the PIN codes left behind once leaving the scene. Before departure, the killer bizarrely gathered assorted family belongings and waste, placing them in the bathtub. This curious collection contained discarded items like ice cream wrappers and torn flyers, mingled with Mikio's work receipts, Yasuko's school documents, and feminine hygiene items carrying the killer's blood, prompting speculation on the killer's intent or a possible attempt to conceal evidence. After a brief sleep, the killer allegedly stole around 150,000 yen, but left behind more money discovered in the study, dispelling simple robbery motives. Valuables remained untouched, except for Mikio's old jacket, the sole missing item. Initially believed to have exited through the second-story bathroom window used for entry, uncertainties remain regarding the killer's departure. Yasuko's mother recalled the front door being locked upon her arrival. Although doubts have since arisen about this detail, leaving investigators puzzled about the assailant's exit strategy. In the years since this tragic event unfolded, the case of the unknown killer has evolved into an urban legend, a chilling narrative of an entire family killed by a mysterious midnight presence. However, in 2006, advancements in forensic testing breathed new life into this mystery. Using blood samples from towels and feminine products at the scene, DNA testing sought to transform this unknown figure from a spectral entity of Setagaya's mid-2000s into a flesh and blood individual. The DNA revealed an unexpected heritage, a mixed-race background for the probable killer, likely not a Japanese citizen. His lineage is traced to an Eastern Asian father and a Southern European descent mother, indicating a complex ancestry. Other details about the perpetrator emerged. He stands around 175 centimeters tall, wears a Korean-specific shoe size about 27.5 centimeters, and is blood type A, discerned from the evidence left behind. Despite these specifics, the killer has persistently eluded justice for over 2 decades now. One hypothesis suggests that the killer is a wandering transient who might have exploited the nearby train system for escape. Setagaya's strategic location near several train lines supports this idea, fueled further by a man treated at a train station's medical center hours after the incident. Another plausible yet speculative angle implicates someone familiar with the Miyazawas personally, potentially one of the individuals involved in Mikio's disputes. Despite meticulous investigations involving over 250,000 Japanese police officers and countless internet theories, the killer continues to evade justice. The quest to unveil the Miyazawa family's assailant remains an unresolved enigma. This brings us to the end of the Setagaya family murders. If you found this video insightful, please express your support by liking it and subscribing to our channel for more engaging true crime content. Until we meet again, take care.